There was a world before this one, but the people of that world did not behave themselves. Displeased, the Great Spirit set out to make a new world. He would sing several songs to bring rain, which poured harder and harder with each song. And as he sang the fourth song, the earth split apart and water gushed up through the many cracks, causing a flood. By the time the rain stopped, all of the people and nearly all of the animals had drowned. Only Kanji, the crow, had survived. He pleaded with the Great Spirit to make him a place to rest. So the Great Spirit decided to create another world. With his huge pack bag that contained all types of animals and birds, he picked 4 animals known for their ability to stay underwater. First the loon, then the punta, kappa, and lastly, keye. Once they had pleased the spirit, they returned to the surface, where he took many animals from his great pipe and spread them across the earth. From red, white, black, and yellow earth, he made men and women. He gave the people his great pipe and told them to live by it. He warned them about the people that came before them. He promised all would be well if all living things learned to live in harmony. But the world would be destroyed again if it was bad and ugly. Native American boarding schools trapped students between 2 worlds, scrutinized native cultures, and forced the exchange of religious ideas in order to have a seamless encounter with the whites. The Bureau of Indian Affairs made the first boarding school in Yakima Indian Reservation in Washington. This was 1860, and the last wasn't until around 1920. Native American boarding schools had a total of 20 to 30,000 students who were forced away from their home and culture. They were taught in a militaristic way where they used harsh punishments to control the children. Their goal was to acclimate the native children to a better American culture. Children were taught the traditional American religion, and they were forced to leave behind their customs. They were forced to believe in a God. And the men were forced to cut their traditionally long hair and change clothing. Along with this, they all had to change their meaningful names to English ones.
My name is Roberta Christine Kidwell Akers. My mom was Christine Bravehawk. My grandparents were Alice and Jim Blackhorse, and we're of the Lakota tribe.
What about the boarding schools?
Oh, not a nice place. Boarding schools, Mom told us many horrible things. Jesuits went on to the reservation, and there's a church on practically every 4 corner. If you take 4 blocks, every 4 blocks there's a church on the reservation, all Catholic or Jesuit, and they were run by nuns. And the highest you could go to school would be 7th grade. You were graduated from your schooling process on the reservation because they didn't think the natives were teachable. And
the students in these controlling schools were taught in a large array of subjects. They were forced to study the English language for hours. No one was allowed to speak in their native dialect. If they did, they would receive punishments, such as lashes with a willow stick. Following this, students were taught common American skills, such as sewing, forcing them to leave traditional methods behind. The men were pushed to play favorite American pastimes, such as baseball and football. Different Native American boarding schools would play against each other. They were never allowed to play with the whites, no matter their skill level. Schooling also included common studies, which were math and science. They were taught like a military member and often ridiculed if they didn't understand it on the first try. Schooling was only a small part of their time they were often forced to clean. They would have to wax the floors and clean bathrooms and sleeping areas. This included the staff members' area, which was often left in a mess. It was also mandatory for them to cook for all the students and staff members. The staff was fed better food while the students suffered with porridge-like meals. Their needs were frequently forgotten because they were treated like burdens that most didn't care for. Following cleaning, it was mandatory for the students to pray and study religious practices at least 2 times a day. Being a Native American, we believe in a Great Spirit who supplies to us. We don't pray, we welcome him in by being purified and cleansed. The teachers would force them to forget the way of thinking and study a Christian religion, where they had to pray and follow his rules. Most forgot about their heritage and traditional practices. The end goal of this was to have a smooth encounter with the whites. Once completed with the studies, which could take more than 4 years, the kids were sent back to the reservations. They were isolated because they had forgotten their native language and typical practices. They were trapped in the reservation because the whites didn't accept them. This made the schools a complete failure and created a cycle of never getting off the reservations that continues today.
They created special books for the grade schools, and every English word was broken down into syllables so that they would learn English language. And the boarding schools were horrible. Mom had to live in one because that's the only way you could afford to feed your kids. And the nuns, she used to tell us about the nuns, making them, they had to scrub floors. You see all these movies where nuns, we did all this hard labor. Well, not on the reservation. The kids did it, who went to the schools. And the poor males, one thing that you didn't do, you kept your traditional hair, and for the males, it stayed long, And they made them cut their hair short, and the girls had to have theirs put up in a bun, and they had to wear aprons like little pinafores over uniforms, basically. But they did all the scrubbing, the cleaning, and when they were in classes and teaching, the Indian kids, of course, they're kids. And they started talking back and forth, but in Lakota. And as soon as the nun heard them, they had one in the front of the room, one in the back of the room, and they had sticks, like a willow stick, and they just smack them, either across the back or across the top of the head, and said, English, English.
We have been forced to change to a religion we don't believe in. It is time to break free from this expectation and go back to our traditional ways.